For decades, we've pretty much been told that ADHD is a genetic brain disease, end of story. But what if that's not the whole picture? In this explainer, we are diving into the work of Dr. Gabor Maté, and he offers a radically different and I think deeply compassionate way to understand the scattered mind. Okay, let's get into it.
That's a quote from Dr. Maté himself. And yeah, he has ADHD. And wow, does that capture it? He's talking about that constant, frantic internal buzz that just needs somewhere to go. It's so much more than being a little forgetful. For a lot of people, it's this exhausting, lifelong fight to manage a mind that feels like it could chew you up from the inside out.
And this right here is the central mystery, the paradox of ADHD that can be so confusing. How can you be the same person who can get laser focused on something you're passionate about for 8 hours straight, but you can't bring yourself to start a 5-minute task you find boring? This isn't about being lazy. It's a situational puzzle that's literally rooted in the wiring of the brain.
So to even begin to solve that puzzle, we have to first appreciate the internal chaos that really defines this condition for so many.
So the textbook definition breaks it down into these three main things. First, difficulty with sustained attention. And notice the wording. It's not a lack of attention, it's a problem regulating it. Second, poor impulse control. Saying or doing things without that little pause. And third, hyperactivity, which, yeah, can be the classic kid who can't sit still, but it can also be a totally internal, nonstop mental chatter.
But here's the most crucial part. What does living with this do to you over time? Well, after years and years of missed deadlines, lost wallets, and people telling you to just focus or try harder, a lot of people with ADHD internalize this deep, painful belief that they are fundamentally broken, that the problem isn't a condition, it's a flaw in their character.
And that just leads us right to the core question of this whole thing. If it's not some kind of moral failing, then what is it? Now, the standard answer for a long time has been that it's a genetic disease you inherit. But Dr. Maté argues that this misses a gigantic piece of the puzzle, a piece that you can find in the earliest moments of our lives.
To really get his perspective, we need a new metaphor for the brain. So forget words like broken or defective. Instead, I want you to picture a sleeping traffic cop.
Yep, every single one of our brains has one. It's sitting right up front, and its job is to manage the flow of absolutely everything.
And this little traffic cop in our heads has a name, of course. It's the prefrontal cortex. It's the most evolved part of the human brain, kind of like our own internal CEO.
And the traffic cop's job description? Oh, it is massive. It handles all of our executive functions. It's in charge of self-regulation, impulse control. That's the thing that stops you from saying something you'll regret. It directs our attention, helps us prioritize tasks, and keeps us emotionally balanced. It's basically the seat of self-control.
So according to Maté, the problem in ADHD isn't a broken brain. It's just an underactive prefrontal cortex. The traffic cop isn't gone, he's just dozing off. And this, by the way, is why stimulants can seem to work. They don't fix the defect, they just give the traffic cop a jolt of coffee to wake him up for a bit.
And when the traffic cop is asleep, you guessed it, total chaos. It's an internal traffic jam. Every thought, every impulse, every emotion is just trying to speed through the intersection all at once. Nothing gets prioritized, and that is the feeling of being scattered, overwhelmed, and unable to focus.
Okay, so that's the what. But the truly mind-blowing part of this theory is the why. Why is the traffic cop asleep in the first place? This is where we get to the absolute heart of the argument.
It all comes down to one critical concept from developmental psychology called attunement. And look, this is not about being a perfect parent. It's much simpler. It's about a caregiver being emotionally present and responsive to their baby, creating this feeling of safety and of being seen.
Because here's the wild part. We are not born with the ability to self-regulate. Those brain circuits for self-control, the ones in the prefrontal cortex, our traffic cop, they are built after we're born. They get physically wired and strengthened by thousands of tiny little interactions with our caregivers. So an infant feels a need, a tune-in caregiver responds, and zap, a neural connection gets a little stronger. But if the caregiver is really stressed or depressed or just emotionally unavailable for whatever reason, that connection doesn't get made as strongly.
So this is the big reframe. Maté is saying ADHD is not an inherited disease, it's a problem in development. The genes might create a vulnerability, sure, but it's the early environment that determines whether those circuits for attention and self-regulation get the stimulation they need to fully mature. It's an issue of wiring, not a lifelong defect.
Now, when you hear all that, it is so easy to jump to one conclusion: blame.
But Maté is incredibly clear that this is exactly the wrong way to look at it.
So, is it the parents' fault? Did they mess up? And the answer is a really firm but compassionate no. The issue is not blame, it's pain. The kind of parental stress that gets in the way of attunement, it doesn't come from a lack of love, it comes from the parents' own lives, their own unresolved anxieties and traumas, which then get passed down, usually completely unconsciously, to the next generation. It's a cycle of pain, not a cycle of blame.
And this understanding that ADHD is a developmental issue, not a permanent character flaw, well, it changes everything. It opens up this incredibly hopeful path forward. Because if the brain can be wired this way by experience, it means it can also be rewired.
One of the first steps on that path is healing the deep wound to self-esteem. See, many people with ADHD spend their lives chasing what you could call acquired self-esteem. It's based on what you achieve, on praise, on what you do, and it is so fragile, it needs constant validation. True self-esteem, that's different. It's not based on what you do, it's the unconditional acceptance of who you are, scattered mind and all.
So healing, in this view, really becomes a process of self-parenting. It's about finally giving yourself the kind of compassionate understanding you may not have gotten enough of. This means getting curious about why your mind does what it does, instead of judging it. It means learning to say no to things so you don't get so overwhelmed. It's about reconnecting with your real feelings and making space for that incredible creativity that so often comes with an ADHD mind.
In the end, this whole conversation comes back to that one word, attention. We started by talking about an attention deficit, but Dr. Maté's work really suggests the core issue is a deficit of attuned attention in early life. So healing for ourselves and for our kids, it all starts by making a conscious choice about where we direct that incredibly powerful force. And that's the question I want to leave you with. Love is a form of attention. Where are you directing yours?